Hey guys, Tim here. Just doing a little work on this Fractal design. Arc Mini R2. Oh yeah. So I'm just blocking it out right now. I'm actually not doing assembly. I just thought I'd go over a few things that I found so far. One is on the cover. I'll bring it in so you guys can see. The screw holes are ovals. So if you use water mounting screws that come with the XSPC radiators, notice they have like a large head on them compared to like what would come with an H100 or what have you. What happens now is they can't go all the way down in through the hole. And it makes it so if you have, say, a fan, and you're trying to go through the fan into the radiator, it can't make it. So as you can see, it doesn't even stick through. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it doesn't even stick through. So I had to buy some extra screws, which was a bummer because I actually do like these panhead screws, where they have little hex heads. So that was okay. But then I tried blocking out the 240 thick rad that I'm going to use from XSPC. And it's going to go in this orientation. And I put the front on, and I went to, you're right, I had screwed this into the front. And I went to swing it in, and it's too tall. So that was pretty cool. You can't even really, get it in. On the Arc Midi, there's a little more room there, and it's made for 140 fans. So you would be able to do this fine on the Arc Midi, but on the Arc Mini, what it causes you to do if you want to do a push-pull is you have to either pre-attach the fans to your rad. So you have to find a little tiny screwdriver, be able to go through that hole, hit the bottom hole, screw them in, and then screw this to the front panel. Or you have to put everything in and then try to screw through the front panel, through both fans, while everything's in there, and I don't know. It's a good idea. I do like the fan mounts built into the bezel, but I think what I would say now is it would be really nice if Fractal just changed this to not have the screws. Because they do stand a little proud too, so you don't get like a very good seal. There's actually a gap. We'll see if I can demonstrate this. So there's actually a little bit of a gap. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. See right there. So see, there's a little gap where my finger is. You can see the black line. That's the front. And then you can see my finger above and below the black line. So what that's going to cause is not a good seal, which is going to make you not pull air as efficiently from the front of the case. It could cause some bleed back. It could cause some turbulence. So just something to watch out for. Had they not indented, quite so dramatically, I think it would have been fine. But I'm going to have to find something to seal the inside with. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to use yet, but I'll have to find something there, a gasket or something, just to seal that. Because why go? I mean, the point here is, guys, if you're going to put one of these big radiators on, you want to make sure the air is going through the thing and not around the thing. So, that's why I said this is a mock-up. So I just have one screwed on so I can see the real size, because I have no gasket here right now, and there will be a gasket, whenever I go to install it for real. Also, you notice I don't have the sweet-looking fittings that I'm going to be putting on this thing. These are really nice. I really like them. So all this stuff is XSPC. The fans are Fractal. So I'm just kind of working through what I want to block out. The first thing I was looking at earlier today, after I did the big one, is the 360 rad. So, you know, it's definitely going to go this way, because then I can just go short runs down to the other water block. So it looks really nice up there. Should fit really good. But the one thing you notice, and this is why you should always block out stuff. You know, always, with water cooling especially, always pre-fit your parts. And you're going to be putting it together and taking it apart a lot. But if you want a good build, you want, you know, something that's going to function for the amount of money you're putting into it, you know, because there's going to be some money in this build with the cooling parts once I get done with it, that you don't really want to waste your money or make things hard on yourself. So say I pre-installed this top rad, the 8-pin is going to be hard to get to, because I'm going to do, you know, 2 fans, you know, a double thick. So basically how I block stuff out is, on a normal radiator, they're roughly the same thickness. They're roughly 40 millimeters. It's a little thicker, but, you know, it's close enough for government work. So what I tend to do, just to get an eyeball on things, is gang 3 fans together, just holding it. And then you can put it up in there and see just like how crazy your push-pull config is going to look. You know, am I even going to be able to see the 8-pin? And, you know, you guys probably can't see that, but you can't even see where the 8-pin is. So if I pre-installed this radiator before I put in the power supply, or at the very least, I have a modular power supply, so at the very least ran the modular cable down for the 8-pin, it's going to be a nightmare, right? Because you're talking, you know, 12 bolts on the top, going through fans into the radiator. So, you know, up to you guys, but this is why I like to kind of pre-fit things and see how it's doing. I'm also thinking about, you know, if I can make it work, I'm thinking about putting an actual intake fan down here, just to get a little more cooling into the case that's fresh air rather than going through a radiator. Because if you can pull in more fresh air, and of course this fan's the wrong way, don't mind that here. It's bugging me, so I'll put it the right way. This fan, if it's blowing straight up, you know, there's obviously graphics cards here, but it will get around those graphics card sums. It'll mix with this air and then kind of push this clean air up toward the other radiator. You know, this is obviously going to be much stronger because this is 4 fans versus 1. But it will just help pull in a little bit extra air. So what I was blocking out was, if you put your little fan down here and you block out this side of things. So, you know, looking at it, I was thinking, hey, that works great. Right? Look at that. Perfect, right? And then you realize I don't have the pump or the reservoir in yet. So that's probably not going to work. We're probably not going to put this one in the bottom. I'd really like to, but I really don't want to give up the push-pull on the front. Much more important than this bottom radiator. What I'm actually going to do is cut out some kind of piece of metal, maybe just some aluminum, spray paint it black, and actually screw it down to these holes. And then I'm going to mount a piece of rubber or Velcro to that plate, so it'll screw in, you know, with some washers through the 4 holes, screw down onto that, and then I'm going to put just cover it all in Velcro, because what I don't want is I want to hold this tighter than it is right now, because you don't want your fan sitting on somewhere that it can make vibrations. So I really want to like hold this down tight. You know, you can hear it. Granted, there's going to be a power supply there, but the filter goes all the way forward and I don't want any of that rattle to get through. So if you plate it, then you're just going to hold things a little more securely, and that should work out okay. So guys, basically this video if you haven't figured out right now, by now, is me rambling about how I block out a system. So, you know, hopefully this is helpful stuff for you guys. If you've already tuned out, I'm sorry. But this will actually be, so this is just going to be a 3770K system. I actually decided not to buy all new parts because this is my first full open loop system. So if I destroy the parts, I would rather them be old parts and not new parts. You can always, if you design your loop correctly, and you're really, 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 really careful, you you can kind of, you know, undo everything and pull a motherboard and put a new motherboard in. I've seen it done. It's not easy, but it is doable without draining your loop, because the only thing on the motherboard itself is the water block, and the water block's watertight on the underside. The thing you have to watch out for is if you have like a crossfire or an SLI setup and you have one of those SLI bridges that's a tension bridge for the water that lets it flex back and forth, then you probably don't want to try to swap your board. And I always take out the power supply before I try to do something like that. So we'll see. We'll see if I ever get to that point. My guess will be the 3770K will overclock enough in this that I'm really not going to care. The only thing I might look into at some point is if there's some way to get the VRM a little more cooling. So this is an Asus Z77 M Pro. So it's the M ATX board of the Z77 line. PB Z77, or P8, excuse me. So I think it'll look good. It's a little bit of a brown board, but when it's back in there, it's really hard to tell. All the LEDs in this system are going to be blue or white, one of the two, depending on what I feel like. All the Raystorm LEDs for the XSPC stuff are blue. So that's kind of why I wanted, you know, a blue board, black and white for the chassis and the cooling. These are obviously, you know, if you can look back on my channel, there's the reviews of these. They're the painted auto body paint. So they look really cool. And I thought it really fit in with the Fractal, you know, black and white theme. That you go black and white and just have kind of this black, white, and blue themed build. Not super, you know, high end. From my point, from the customization of this case, the EVGA Hadron case is completely over the top compared to this. You know, I'm not going to drill out and have this repowder coated and, you know, that kind of stuff. Part of the reason for that is that Fractal did a good job painting the case, and I don't have to do that. A little dig at EVGA there, but I probably wouldn't have taken quite as much of the Hadron apart if they had actually painted the whole case. Now, I say that saying that it might have been an eval unit that I had, so the real units might be painted on the inside. So find somebody that bought one from like Amazon and see if theirs is painted. But other than that, I know why some parts weren't painted. Like that back part on the case I had for the Hadron Hydro will be where the reservoir sits. So I can understand that. I would have liked to have seen it painted though, in either case. But, so this is, you know, I like this config. I like this going in this way. It's going to let me go from my pump in, out to the water block, out of the water block into the GPU, out of the GPU into the reservoir, which will sit right back here, out of the reservoir back into the pump. And that way there's no crosses in tubing. And I could actually just go, like if I come into the front here, go out here, come into this side, the back side, and then come out the front, but I don't think that would look as clean. I would rather have the short run going across, but we'll see what that, you know, it depends on what kind of arcs you have to do for the tubing too. You know, that might be too much of a bend. We are using, of course, the Primo Chill Primo Flex Advanced, same stuff that Linus uses. And this is pretty much, you know, it's funny because I did all of my research by myself without really watching any of the Linus stuff. And other than, you know, preferences in water blocks and radiators, I tend to prefer XSPC. He has a couple other brands that he likes. We both run SwiftTech pumps. We both, tend to like the minimalist approach, and we both like Primo Chill tubing. So, and the reason for that is that I should be able to get, you know, it's going to go from here and it's going to loop and you have to go up into the top. I should, hopefully, be able to get that bend in there. And if I can't, what I'll do is I'll mount this the other way, like this, and not run a back fan. And then I can go, in this side, out here into the water block, out of the water block, up into the rad, which will give me a more gradual bend. Out of the rad into the GPU, and then out of the GPU into the reservoir, into the pump. So that might be the way I do it. The only thing I don't like is when you do that in this case, because the port area is so big, you're going to sacrifice most likely, especially if, you're going to 100% sacrifice if you're doing push-pull, because it moves the rad down too far that if there's a 120 back here, that it actually hits it. So, and that's not because of, how the system's designed. It's just because the fill ports on this radiator are, really stick out. So, not much you can do about that. Just the design of the rads. So, we'll see. I definitely want this one facing up because it'll make it easier to bleed the system. So we'll see how all that goes. Using compression fittings for everything. So I really like these. They look really slick, especially with the black and the white. They're nice, like kind of smoked, titanium-ish color. So those look really sweet. So the other thing you could do if you wanted to is put a 280 rad in the top. But that gets really close. If you're doing a push-pull, you probably can't do a push-pull with a 280 because you're gonna bump into your RAM most likely. You'd have to have low-profile RAM for sure. But you're also probably gonna come down, I don't want to cover up the water block. So I like the idea of using the 360. It also gives this case a little bit of a unique feel. So, how many MATX cases do you see that have a 240 fat and a regular 360 in the roof? You could actually put a thick 360 in the roof and just use one set of fans, but I'd rather do the push-pull with a thinner radiator on the top, just because then I can undervolt the crap out of those 6 fans, still get a lot of airflow, but not really have to listen to it. And that's also, one thing. I'm probably going to run 2 fan controllers in this case. One for this radiator, one for this radiator. And the reason for that is I don't know. We'll see. There's going to be 10 fans in this case at a minimum. So it starts to get a little ridiculous after a while. We'll see what I have to do, because I definitely want, I want the pairs on the same channel, because I want those two and those two to be running at the same speed. It's not necessarily as important that these two are running at the same speed, but you want the paired set, the front and the back, to not cause turbulence between each other. If this one runs too slow and the one in front's running too fast, you're going to get compression on the back one. If the front one's running too slow and the back one's running too fast, you're going to get warble on the front one. So, and compression is, it's trying to not let enough air through, so the front's going to be fighting. And in both scenarios, it's actually the front fan that makes the noise most of the time. So, and of course, that's the one you absolutely don't want to make the noise. In the top scenario, it's the inside ones that typically make the noise. But I'm going to, like I said, I'm really going to ratchet down the top fans. as much as I can get away with. You know, I have an i7 that using an H100, I can overclock to 4.6 pretty easy, 4.7 as long as I don't overclock the RAM. And then if I overclock the RAM, I start getting a little bit skittish on the 4.7. So I can do a pretty stable 4.6 with about, you know, 130 or 2133 overclock on the RAM. This is a slightly different board, but the same components. So my other board is a P8Z77-V Deluxe. So a little bit better componentry than this board, but I think for what I'm going to want to do, I really do want to try this with the M-ATX form factor. I just think it'll be, you know, a slicker, smaller case, and that's really what I'm trying to go for with this build is, you know, I'm trying to replace my ginormous PC with a smaller PC, just because it'll be easier to move around, to be honest with you. I really was looking at doing this build in like the Arc XL, but once I got it all built out, and I'd want to put another radiator in there besides these two, which was the first problem. I was going to try to put 3 radiators in it, or 4. It just kind of, for my first water cooling build, seemed like overreaching. So I thought this will be a good looking little case. I'll be able to put, you know, all the cooling in here I want. And then I'm going to take the H100 out of my other system and put it in the EVGA system. Just because I really don't want to deal with trying to put a custom loop in that small of a case. I'm not that good. So I tend to break things. If nobody's noticed, there's always something dropping or falling. But that's about it for this video, guys. Like I said, I just wanted to show you where I'm blocking things out. I'm still trying to figure out what power supply I want to go with in this case. And what video card. Very likely I'm going to put one of the 290Xs in here, water cool it, and see just how hard I can push it. What I'd actually really like to do, if AMD, hint hint, wants to send me a Fire Pro card, I'd really love to run a 290X and a Fire Pro. So we'll see how that goes. I'm actually not going to put my sound card in this case because I actually have an external soundboard that I'm going to start using, and that basically takes over your internal audio completely. And I'm also not going to game capture from this system because I'm going to build a Steam box with another different Fractal case. So if you guys haven't noticed, I really like Fractal cases. In my opinion, they are the best quality. Corsair's right up there, but I really feel like, you know, the minimalistic design, the attention to detail, even though there's things that I would change on this case, you know, that's a lot of it is personal preference, and a lot of it is doing something with this case that nobody else is probably going to do, or maybe, you know, 10 people are going to try to do. So, you know, sometimes take my criticism of this case with a grain of salt. It's really hard for me to find anything to say bad about it. I really think the only thing that really annoys me is the fact that even these top holes are ovals, and it'd really be nice to see them stamped. At least the depression. I like the idea that the hole is an oval, but at least the depression big enough that you could get, you know, one of these, you know, hex screw, you know, these guys. Let's see here. Where's the camera? There we go. So one of these guys. I'd love to be able to use these because they do hold a lot better, and they just look cool. So this is Tim for Timmy Tech TV. If you hung in with me this long, remember to subscribe because I'm always giving away random Steam games to people that comment or thumbs up my videos. Check out the review of this case. I really think a lot of you will like it, especially if you're looking for an M-ATX case. I prefer this over the 350D personally. I think it has a lot more flexibility. I'm not saying that the 350D is a bad case, but you know, if this case weren't around, I'd go with the 350D for an M-ATX case. But I really do like this case. Subscribe, thumbs up, subscribe, thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.